Forget the final for a second. Forget the chaos, the penalties, the walk-off and the headlines, because Senegal did not win AFCON 2025 in extra time in Rabat. They won it over a month of quiet control, emotional discipline and an ability to win games without ever looking like they needed to panic. This was not a fairy tale run. This was not underdogs riding momentum. This was a team that arrived knowing exactly who they were, knowing exactly what tournaments demand, and trusting that if the pressure came, it would affect everyone else first. AFCON 2025 will always be remembered for controversy, but Senegal's road to the trophy is actually a case study in how champions behave when nothing goes smoothly and when the noise around you keeps getting louder. So let's rewind properly and walk through how Senegal earned this title long before the final whistle ever blew. Senegal entered Group D as defending champions, and immediately you could see the difference in mentality. There was no frantic energy, no need to impress early, and no sense of entitlement. Instead, there was structure. The opening game against Botswana set the tone. Senegal were patient early, then ruthless when the gaps appeared. Nicholas Jackson's 2 goals were not moments of individual chaos, but the product of positioning, timing, and trust on the system. Even when the game was effectively done, Senegal kept playing properly. That is a detail that matters in tournaments. The second group game against Congo was more uncomfortable, and that is where the value of experience shows. Senegal were not at their best and they were held to a draw, but they never looked rattled. They slowed the game, managed transition, and accepted that not every match needs to be won spectacularly. Then came the final group game against Benin, and this is arguably the most revealing performance. Senegal scored early, stayed compact, and then lost Kalidou Koulibaly to a red card. At that point, many teams wobbled. Senegal did not. They reorganized, protected zones, and still found ways to threaten. Winning 3-0 while playing with 10 men was not about talent, it was about authority. By the end of the group stage, Senegal were unbeaten, top of the group, and had barely been stretched emotionally. That matters later. The round of 16 brought Sudan, and for the first time Senegal were genuinely tested. Sudan scored early, and suddenly Senegal were chasing a game they expected to control. This was the moment that defined the tournament. There was no rush, no panic. Papa Gueye equalized, and instead of celebrating wildly, Senegal reset. The second goal came from pressure and positioning, not desperation. When Ibrahim Mbaye sealed the match, that result felt inevitable rather than dramatic. In the quarter-final against Mali, the margins tightened. This was physical, tense, and attritional football. Senegal won 1-0, and it was the kind of win that never trends on social media but always wins tournaments. Defensive distances were perfect, midfield duels were managed rather than chased. When the final whistle went, Senegal looked like a team that had spent the entire match in control of their emotions. The semi-final against Egypt was different. This was history, pressure, and reputation all wrapped into one opponent. Egypt knew how to survive tournaments, and Senegal knew this would be decided by moments. Sadio Mane delivered that moment. His goal was not just about quality, but about timing. Senegal waited, Senegal absorbed, then Senegal attacked. By this point, they had won every type of game. Comfortable wins, scrappy wins, and emotionally draining wins. That is how champions are built. Going into the final against Morocco, Senegal were walking into a storm. Host nation, full stadium, political expectation, 50 years of waiting, everything was loaded against them except one thing: experience. Senegal had been there before, Morocco had not. That difference showed immediately. Senegal were compact, disciplined, and deliberately slow. They were happy to frustrate, they were happy to let the noise build because they trusted that the longer the game went, the more the pressure would shift. And when the controversy arrived, that trust was tested more than ever. The disallowed Senegal goal was the first flashpoint. The referee blowing early removed any chance of VAR intervention and immediately created a sense of injustice. Moments later, VAR intervened at the other end to avoid Morocco a penalty. The inconsistency was obvious, and Senegal reacted badly. Walking on the pitch was wrong. It cannot be defended, but it can be understood in the context. The atmosphere was volatile, the crowd was hostile, and the sense of imbalance was real. This is where Sadio Mane changed the narrative. He calmed teammates, spoke to officials, and ensured the match continued. That intervention matters because it kept Senegal in the game psychologically. Then came the penalty delay, and then came the Panenka. In that moment, Edouard Mendy did not just save a penalty, he absorbed the entire weight of the stadium. When he caught the ball, the final tilted. Extra time belonged to Senegal because emotionally, Morocco were finished. Papa Gueye's goal was decisive, powerful, and symbolic. It was Senegal saying that football would decide this, not chaos. Before closing one issue must be addressed clearly. Morocco's repeated interference with Edouard Mendy by removing his towels was unacceptable. This was not clever, this was not tactical, it was juvenile behavior in a continental final, and it deserves criticism. Big teams do not do that. Senegal were not perfect. They made mistakes, they lost control briefly, but championships are not about perfection, they're about response. Senegal responded every time, they adapted tactically, controlled emotionally, and delivered when moments mattered. They won different types of matches and they survived the most chaotic final Africa has seen in years. That is why they're champions again. AFCON 2025 will be remembered for controversy, but Senegal's road to victory will be remembered by coaches and players as a blueprint for tournament football. Calm beats noise, structure beats emotion, and character wins titles.